Good day, everyone. This is another episode of Situations. Chris Brown, CPRC, Certified Peer Recovery Coach. I'm here today again with my colleague, and we are going to finish that Iceberg Model. Let him introduce himself.
My name's David. I'm a LLMSW, Limited License Masters of Social Work, and if this is your first time tuning into a podcast with me in it, so I work at TriCap as a therapist, and I do individual and group therapy as well.
And we're here to help the public. And we left off the last time, I believe, on the Iceberg Model, you had just finished up with the emotions.
Yep. So that was that third layer, right? So with the addiction at the top, so above, the surface of the water, and then conditions, below that, and then emotions below that. So
yeah,
and we were
deep.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is, and we were focusing on just kind of one line of a story of addiction, because that's what this really represents. This iceberg model is a way for someone to be able to see, their story of addiction, and that can later on be used to kind of form their story of recovery, which is something I can talk about at a different time as well. So so just going on to the next layer. So we started off, again, looking at, PTSD as kind of one underlying influence of addiction, right? So right, addiction was at the top right there. PTSD was under conditions, and now for emotions. So like I said, some common things I've seen with PTSD include shame, guilt, anger, all sorts of different stuff, anxiety, fear, right? All these very strong emotions, and people with PTSD do tend to feel it very strongly, hence a lot of emotional pain.
Okay.
Now the next layer, so for thoughts, so negative core beliefs that people hold on to that can really, drive, a lot of these feelings, or intensify a lot of these feelings.
What are some of the negative core beliefs that people do hold on to?
So it could be things like, I'm a failure, or I'm weak, or I'm not good enough, or, again, if we're talking about abuse, why didn't I fight back, or if they didn't feel loved in childhood, thinking like, okay, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to be loved, right? So all these very negative core beliefs can influence someone's whole worldview, essentially, how they experience the world. Yeah.
I know a young lady, she wrote a book, two books actually. One was called Behind the Mask, and coming outside, being somebody you're not, because you don't want people to know what's going on inside you, deep down inside you. And then there was another book, Little Girl Arise, and the illustration of the book on the front was a grown woman, but inside there was a little girl. There was issues that this woman, or it could be little boy. It ain't just got to be a woman. It's issues that people never dealt with. Now that they're grown, you see this grown person, but it's an issue that happened when in their childhood. Maybe they was 7, 8, 10, 15 years old, and they carried it over into adulthood. And now it's affecting everything in their life, affecting their family life. It's affecting how they perform at work. It's affecting how they interact with their friends. Yeah. So I just wanted to say that, because that's, if you got all that going on, a lot of times we are not showing who we truly are.
Yeah, and I think we really have to work to acknowledge that this is going on within us. And like I said, we're talking PTSD directly.
Right.
A big symptom tends to be the avoidance. We don't want to face these things because they're very scary and they're very intense. But the reality is, facing these things is how we're going to start to heal. And, that's not something you have to do alone. Like, you got help out here. We got resources. And I'm sure you can link them to some more resources in that regard. yeah, reaching out to someone, a therapist, someone who can really guide you on this path to healing, that's how we can really dig into this stuff without becoming overwhelmed, because it is very overwhelming to try to look at this, and at the same time, I think ignoring it's not going to solve the issue. It's
not going away at all.
No, it's just gonna make it worse. Yeah.
Ignoring a situation is like me sweeping the floor and sweeping the trash into a corner. It's only a matter of time for the whole room be filled with trash.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I need to get a dustpan and throw this trash away. Because it's going to eventually accumulate over time.
Yeah. I like that analogy. That's good. I think that really puts it into perspective. Yeah. Another one I've heard, you can kind of think about, a balloon. When we hold, right, things underwater, right? So imagine you're trying to hold a balloon underwater.
Right.
The deeper you try to push it, the more pressure it's going to have.
Right.
And it's going to be harder and harder to hold it in. So it's like when our hands slip,
it's out there.
And just comes bursting up. And that's when we, have this big emotional outburst, all these different things, turning to substance use, all this is happening, right? And I think a lot of people think that, therapy, that's what's going to happen. But that's not the case. If done right, with a therapist that's trauma informed, we slowly let the balloon up. We slowly start to look at things, and then we can kind of deflate it and really heal from all of that, right? So It doesn't just happen all of a sudden. It's not quick like that. It takes time.
So it's like this then. Because I'm starting to get this iceberg effect, this iceberg model of addiction. And it makes sense. Here it is, say you got a guy getting charged with domestic violence. He had slapped his wife. And then, so forth, you go to jail, whatever, but then he goes see a counselor. Or, how would you say it? And they explore.
Yes.
During that, they're exploring. The professional discovered that, okay, the substance abuse is what triggered the domestic violence. Watch where I'm going with this.
Okay, go ahead.
He was under the influence of alcohol. He never did this before, but lately, for the past 6 months, my husband been drinking non-stop, barely want to go to work now, and now he has started putting his hands on me. This is the wife talking. So now the professional discovered that, okay, his substance abuse is pushing the domestic violence behavior. But watch it get deeper. Because during the exploitation of exploring this matter of his behavior, the professional discovered that the husband has a mental health issue, which has pushed him to the substance use,
right,
which is causing the domestic violence, influencing it.
Yes,
I like that correction.
Yes. And
sorry about that.
I want to say a couple things with that. Because yes, it's important to make all these connections, and at the same time, that individual is still accountable for their actions.
Right. I agree.
It's causing harm, right? And safety comes first. It's, I think in that situation, speaking from my perspective, I would first, try to address the safety in the relationship. If, he's going to be abusive, laying his hands on her, but that's not okay. We can't have that.
We know that.
We can't let that go on. And we can't really, dive, deeper into these things unless, that safety has been achieved. And I think that's why, we have, the types of systems set up in the country, where
Right,
there
right.
are, domestic violence programs, there are residential programs. So this person is removed from that situation
Right,
where they can no longer cause the harm, and they can work on themselves and really explore these things. And then, okay, it's safer to, go back there and set up those boundaries and work on the relationship, if that's, again, safe to do so.
You're right.
And I think another key point, okay, is that individual, like I said, willing to look within, because that's a big part of it too. If they're not willing to look within and see that all this stuff is
Right.
going on, it's not going to change anything. And it is scary to face these things, and it's a matter of, you got to work to be brave and again, face these things one step at a time,
Okay.
and be open to looking within, be open to, working through these defense mechanisms, which again, it's a whole nother ball game,
Right,
But
right.
there's a lot of layers to everything, so it's not always as simple as
We haven't
we
even
just treat it.
scratched the surface.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to, move away from the domestic violence issues, because I think that there's another complicated layer to it.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
touchy
for
subject.
sure. So I just want to focus on the addiction right now. So
Okay.
the addiction iceberg, for sure.
Well said.
For sure.
So,
Thank you. So yeah, anything else before we?
No, we can move to the next layer.
Okay. So we've discussed the thoughts. So underneath that, so I want to ask the question. So if we have these negative beliefs about ourselves, or the world. So to give an example of that, because I don't think I've given an example of that before, it might be that someone might believe other people are not to be trusted, or other people
Right.
are against me, right? Things like that. So
What's the name of this layer?
so we're still kind of exploring thoughts right there, and we're about to move on to the layer beneath it,
Okay.
with the question of where do these thoughts come from? Like, why might someone develop these core beliefs? Any thoughts?
It depends on. Maybe it was how I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's what I seen my parents do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the person is. I would say for a person to get them thoughts, they had to be somewhere and being. How would I say this correctly? They was being influenced some type of way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or there's a lot of trauma there, in that upbringing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of brings me to my next, I would say my next two layers, because they can be a little interchangeable in some senses. So significant events and their environment. So everything you said, it relates to that, right? So the way a person is raised, which, again, to have these negative core beliefs, I think there's often, a trauma involved, in that. So if, a person is believing that no one is to be trusted, okay, why might that be? What happened to that person to form this belief?
Right.
Okay. And I think some potential explanations would be, what if, the people that raised them, the very people that they, were depending on, for trust, for love, for care, is the people that abused them. Right.
Caused this trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I think in that situation we can say cause, because,
Or
those type of events,
influenced it.
Well, I think in this one I would agree with cause.
It caused it.
Yeah, because it doesn't, so there's a difference between, the word, trauma and traumatized, because a person can experience, a trauma and not be traumatized.
Right.
Meaning like they don't get all these negative effects, maybe they had usually with those individuals, there is some sort of positivity in their lives that protects them from becoming traumatized. So that's a big difference there. Trauma is the actual event itself. And typically I think a trauma can cause a person to be traumatized. Not in every case, but in a lot of cases, and especially if there is no positive things in their lives to protect them.
Right.
So that's what it comes down to. So, yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
That's a deep subject. You get talking about traumatized. And what do you suggest? Because there's probably a viewer out there listening. How do they properly go about getting the help they need for the trauma that was the trauma that they experienced through their life?
Well, my question is that person currently experiencing trauma, or do they have past trauma? Because I think that
is a good question.
Because safety comes first, and that's another. If we want to do another podcast some other time, I could break down kind of the what I want to call it. So the trauma recovery model, I should say, because it goes off of like different phases in it, and the first phase is safety, right? So if someone's in an active trauma situation, we have to be able to get them to a position where they aren't getting re-traumatized. Because if you try to help someone, through a trauma, when they're going through a trauma, it's difficult because they're always going back to that trauma. You need to figure out how to be safe, and it depends on what that trauma is, and this is why, things like CPS exist, because if a child is being abused, their job is to help with the child's safety. Now, usually their goal is not to remove the child unless it is to put to the point where, they are, being, very, very abused or neglected, and they have to. But first they would, try to really assist the parent, on how to create a safe environment for them, right? Whether that means, parenting classes, whether that means, just educating them on different things, whatever it may be, that safety is important. And that's for the sense of, if we want an individual to heal from trauma, we got to create a safe space for them to do so.
I agree.
Yeah. So that's what that comes down to.
Okay.
So, and then once that's established, then we can really get the help. And everyone's path to healing from trauma can look different. And there's lots of trauma-informed therapies out there. Just to name a few, internal family systems, EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, trauma-focused CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right.
And I don't want to explain all those right now. That's a lot to get into. But that's just kind of a general. Yeah, that's just kind of a general look at what are the types of therapies that can help someone with trauma. But again, safety comes first. Getting into a safe position. Whatever that may look like, so that you can begin your healing. For some people that is going into a rehab facility. It may be something that you want to do voluntarily, because for yourself, I want to heal from this, but right now I'm kind of caught in this dangerous situation, or I'm in this cycle, or I'm in an addiction and I can't really feel safe. Then let's get you to a place where it is safe, where you can be away from these means of escape, right? The substances. You're away from being on the streets and experiencing more trauma. You're away from potentially abusive situations or relationships or whatever it may be. A safe space, where you can start that path to healing. So that's what it comes down to. Yeah. And to go back to the layers, right? So that's that. So significant events, includes a lot of traumas, a person's upbringing. So all of that can influence, a person and their thinking and everything above that we've talked about so far.
Sound good.
But yeah.
Yeah, you broke it down real good. Real nice.
There you go.
And then, like I said, always, I want you all to be mindful that you guys questions at any time. You can put your comments and statements down in the comment section. And if it's a question, we'll be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. But yeah.
Yeah, and we got a couple more layers to get through. So I think the next one, like I said, the environment. So like I said, the significant event and the environment, they can go pretty interchangeably because someone's growing up in a very traumatic environment where the parents are using drugs or they're being neglectful, abusive in whatever way. That's a traumatic environment that's causing. There's a bunch of significant events happening there that is causing, a lot of trauma there. So that's that layer overall. So just recognizing how all of that, can impact someone. Even things like,
do the ACEs play a part in this situation?
yes. So ACEs, for the viewers, that stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, and that's a way to measure, how much trauma someone's been through in their childhood.
Yes.
And yeah, and that's something you can kind of look up for yourself as well. Yes, we use it clinically, but you can find it online too. So if you're ever curious on, okay, have I experienced a lot of trauma? Look at those questions, and you might be able to see that, okay, maybe there is a lot underneath. Maybe there's a lot that I haven't addressed. Maybe there's a lot of things that might explain why I am the way I am, right? So yeah, that's definitely a good thing to explore.
Okay.
So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
that
bringing
environment, because that affects, man. That's affecting that's affecting our youth now, and it don't matter different ethnic groups, races, cultures. It's affecting everyone.
The trauma doesn't discriminate.
It doesn't discriminate.
It can happen anywhere. That's
And
sure.
our youth is really got out of hand in this nation, in America now. And I believe it all starts at home, in the environment they was in.
That's huge.
It's already been shown. This ain't no slap in the face to single mothers, because I know it's hard trying to raise children on your own. But it's in stats, I don't have them on hand, but I heard that through stats that how you say that's to when you talking about stats, then
Which stats in particular?
About single mothers, that the children, the sons are more prone to be locked up, raised in a single mother home than a 2-parent home, or even just with their father.
Okay.
And I'm gonna get that.
Yeah, because that's not a statistic I've looked into personally.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I want to get that statistical myself and have it present next time when we're talking about this, because I do believe that the father is needed in the home. I do believe that the mother is needed in the home. And children that grow, that come up in a 2-parent home and both of them focus, you get a more better successful rate, I believe.
Right.
And I'm just going by what I've seen growing up.
Yeah.
And I say that I was raised in a single mother home, and it wasn't the trouble I got into in the past growing up had nothing to do with that. I wasn't raised right. It was the choice that I made to do. I knew right from wrong. I knew.
Yeah, those morals.
Right. I knew the morals. I was taught right from wrong. So
that's good. I think that plays a role, and there's a protective factors, right? Things that can keep you, from going down the wrong path. I think, that definitely, having good morals from the get-go, having been taught that makes more of a difference than, individuals that haven't really been taught that.
Yeah, and then just because the wrong decisions I made, that even more make me want to be in my children's life, so they won't make the same mistakes that I made. But it still go by choice. You still you got the choice to do better than I did, or you can do the same thing I did. Make the wrong choices I did. But you got choice, and you got this choice. And the reason why I think you should make better decisions than me, because look what this situation I was in years ago. Look at this situation what happened to me when I was younger. You know what I'm saying? You can avoid that just by listening to me. I shared with the guys over there at TriCap that a smart man would learn from his mistakes. I said, but a wise man will learn from the mistakes of others. You don't have to make the mistakes yourself. You can just listen to the next person and choose not to make that mistake because they shared their experience with you, and you can avoid encountering the hardship that they went through.
Okay. And to kind of put that out there, how does one develop a wise mentality like that?
Listen, number one, like I did that class today, thinking for a change. Thinking for a change. Really listen to it. That if I'm in a present state, say for instance, a person is in jail or in prison, you're in a present state at that moment. Now, I know that if I get out, go make the same negative choices that I made before I came in here, or a person got incarcerated, well, I can relate to this because I've been incarcerated before. So if I'd have got out and still made unwise choices, then I'd have found myself getting in trouble all over again. But when I found myself in trouble, it was time for me to change the way I think. And what it was that when you see yourself in the present, not just the mindset, but in the present situation where you physically at, you gotta want change. And I want to change. How do I receive this change? Number one, I gotta change the way I think. Because if I don't change the way I think, I find myself in trouble all over again. So to give you an example of changing the way you think, say for instance a person is a drug dealer. They get caught for selling drugs. And the person say, well, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna start working and I'm not gonna do that anymore. But watch this. If they don't change the way they think, and as soon as they run across hard times, that they need a little extra money, and they haven't changed the way they think, they're going to resort back to the old behavior. I know how I can make some money real quick.
I think this fits very well with the iceberg, right?
Right.
If we don't address what's underneath, which thinking was one of our layers, right?
You're right.
That behavior is still going to continue. So by doing that, you looked underneath. You went deeper.
Right.
You weren't just at the surface level. And that's
right.
good.
You gotta dig deep.
And that makes all the difference.
Right.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna let you continue, Dave, because the reason I said this, I'm just want to go right back real quick with my mother. That she taught me right from wrong. She brought me up right. Taught me the best way she knew how to raise a boy. She couldn't raise a man like a man could, but she did the best she can.
Yeah, that's what
and she taught me how to be respectful, how to treat other people, and so forth.
Establish some good values.
Established it, established it. And I looked at it this way, man. It wasn't that I wasn't taught right, but when you live somewhere and you see everybody else doing something, it ain't just about influence. It's about, okay, they doing it. I think I can do it too, and I probably can do it better than them.
What drives that desire?
That desire is driven by lack of. When you lack something, whether it's money, food, anything. I didn't like any food, anything like that. But when you feel that you can have more money at the time, when I was younger, at the time, we didn't have a whole lot of money, me and my mother, you know? So when you lack something, your thoughts begin to wonder. I wonder what happened if how they making all that money out there? They selling drugs. What'll happen if I go try to sell drugs? Try to sell drugs? Oh, this ain't for me. You see what I'm saying? Well, what they doing over there? Being colonizers. Let me go try that. You see what I'm saying?
See where it spirals. Yeah.
It spirals. So a lot of times we are doing things not because we want to do it. I see the outcome of what they doing. I see the money. You see, a person don't have to worry about what I'm gonna say. They living comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing about when you get money the wrong way is we're not looking at the lack of peace they got. We're not looking at they're looking over their shoulder all the time. We're not looking at they're worried about the police coming to get them because somebody had told on them about what they have been doing. We don't look at all these. We don't look at that. These people see making all this money. They plan on coming to rob you, McKinney. See, we're not looking at these things when we see, but when you face with lack of, you begin to think, and instead of the choice is this. I believe this, that if I'd have had a more present male role model, I wouldn't have made half of the choices I made. It wasn't that my mother didn't do what she supposed to do. When we were younger, we don't want to listen to our parents. You see what I'm saying? Does that make any sense what I'm saying, David? We want to go and do what we want to go do. She don't know what she's talking about. I'm going to go over here and try, and then you see you get in trouble. Boy, I told you don't go hang around them boys. They don't mean you no good.
We want to learn
Then
for ourselves.
Then you guilty by association.
Because we haven't developed that wise mindset that you were talking about, right? Someone is telling us,
Right.
From mistakes they've seen, perhaps others make, that this is what's going to happen. But if we don't have that wise mentality, then it's like, oh, we want to find out. We want to do it, right?
Yeah. And when I look at the whole situation, and I said, I remember saying this in 97, the summer of 97. I say, man, I'm having some hard times. I know this ain't how life supposed to be. You see what I'm saying? And I caught myself in a present state of, on the verge of wanting to continue to do negative, like, take my money. I want to take my money and go sell drugs. I spend this amount, I can get this amount. But that wasn't the answer. That wasn't the answer, right? So I choose to move forward and go get a job, right? But as soon as you ain't making enough money at your job, you back to all negative thinking again. Why? Because I haven't changed the way I think yet. So I don't want to drag this out, man. I really want to get deep on it. So it's going to be a session itself of it's going to be
for sure
the road to a different mindset.
Okay, I like that.
The road to a different mindset and how I change the way I think.
Yeah, and that's good. You bring up a lot of good stuff. You made me think about a lot of things, and we had one more layer to get through. If that's okay.
We might as well get through.
Get through it. So the last layer is value. So this is underneath the significant events and the environment. And I think the things you talked about, with your story, I think that paints a whole nother example, of this iceberg.
Right.
Because you're talking lack of. Right, it's a desire for something. It's a desire to meet something. So that's what values are. What we find is important to us. Financial stability, for example, right? So if we don't have that value met, we want to find a way to meet it. And if we have all these things, in our life that, have happened that strayed us away from that value or kept us away from that value, and we developed a negative mindset from, all these negative things that happen or whatever it may be, then it's more likely that we turn into a negative way. So it fits. It really fits, So thank you for sharing that. And I did want to kind of go back to the example, in terms of kind of the PTSD, line of things as well. So I think in that, realm, if we're talking values, and again, this is just one example, someone with PTSD may experience, many different, scenarios, but in terms of values, right? It might be like they value, I would say as humans, I'll speak in a broader sense right here. As humans, we all have certain innate values that I think we develop very early on. For example, the desire to be loved, to trust others, right?
Yeah.
So when we experience something like abuse, and I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but when we experience something like abuse, that trust, that love is broken. Now we lost connection with that authentic self. That sense of self is very buried very deep within, and we put on all these layers that make it hard to reconnect with that self, to recover that self that is lost.
Right.
So yeah, so that's what it comes down to. So that's pretty much the iceberg model. So if we go from bottom to the top now, so let's say, and I'll make this quick. So value, right? Trust and love is broken. Person is in an environment where, that occurs, right? Because of, the trauma they go through, parents not being there, experiencing abuse, things of that nature. They form these negative beliefs about themselves, right? Of like, I'm not good enough, I don't, deserve to be loved, things like that. So they form these negative views, right? They get this sense of shame and guilt, and they develop PTSD, right? Because that trauma has a deep impact on them. They have so much emotional pain that's built up from all this that they turn to using a substance to try to cover up that pain. But it essentially becomes that cycle of more and more pain. And the more hurt that person feels, the more they desire to escape.
Right.
And the more they're caught in that cycle. So again, it just comes down to, how do we take the time to really look within and start to, well, that could be a whole nother topic. That's for sure.
Whole nother topic. Y'all hear that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think we can put that for next time, because it's there's a it takes a lot to be able to look within. Like I said, it takes a lot of courage. It's very uncomfortable, but it's a matter of taking those steps to do it. And one more thing I wanted to
oh wow, man.
Yeah, one more thing I wanted to kind of speak on. So earlier when you were talking about that book, and again, I don't know what the name of it was, but you mentioned something about the child within, right? Things like that.
Oh yeah.
And that sparked a lot of things for me. There's a concept in trauma therapy called inner child healing. So that's another thing we can speak on at a later time. But I just wanted to put that out there, that kind of brought that up for me. So that's something I would love to kind of speak about more, because that'll kind of hit on of, okay, how do we start to again heal from all these things? So it's a journey. It's not a instant fix.
Yeah, there's a lot of people carrying all that baggage with them.
And we have to acknowledge that it's there. And then we have to unfold all those layers.
How you gonna have a successful marriage and you still dealing with being molested as a child? How can a person move forward in a relationship when they haven't dealt with the rape that occurred?
It's gonna be very difficult too. And it's gonna cause issues if they're unaware of what's happening.
Exactly.
Yes. And the first step, just awareness. And that's what this iceberg is for.
Right.
Just that awareness of what's going on within us, not just what's at the surface, right? Because like we said, if we only focus on the surface, we don't change. It can still continue in some form or another. Even if, yes, we address the addiction, we're sober, but what about the mindset? What about the thinking under it? What about the lifestyle that we live? What about still issues that we may face, within ourselves, in our relationships, or other addictions that we may turn to, right? So all those things, and if we want to address them, we can't just look at the surface.
Now look at this.
Underneath.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
What you saying is just like that weed, that dandelion. I can grab that dandelion, snatch it off, and grow right back.
Okay.
If I don't want that dandelion to grow back again, I gotta dig in the ground and get it by the roots.
Yes.
And take it out by the roots. You're saying with this problem that you're talking about, all these different things on that iceberg. You can take a person can take something and cut that top of that iceberg that's sticking out the water and cut that off. And then all that problem is still underwater.
We haven't addressed the root.
Yeah, I haven't addressed it.
I like that. That was good.
So
That was good.
I'm gonna leave it up to you. What we're gonna talk about next on the next one, because I think these things need to be talked about.
Oh, that's
A lot of people struggling with them. They don't know how to confront them. They don't know who to confide to when they do want to confront them, and they don't know the proper help and resources to assist them when they're addressing these issues. So I learned a lot of things today, and within both of the recordings.
And I'll add to that as well. I would say I learned some things from you too. Especially with that lack of that you said.
Right.
That
lack of.
That was a lot of light bulbs for me right there. So yeah.
Yeah, it's the lack, man. The lack. But think about it. A person might have started stealing or selling drugs or whatever they was doing that was wrong, breaking the law because of lack of. But pride set in somewhere for a lot of people, and it don't become. The problem don't. How would I say this? I just say for example, a person starts selling drugs because I don't have much. I'm lacking this. I'm lacking that. We need this. We need that. So,
may I just add, and in terms of the iceberg model, I think that's that value. There's a certain value there that's being unmet, that the person desires to meet.
But then when they begin to meet, even though it's the wrong way, they begin to meet them values. I don't have to worry about what I'm gonna eat tonight. I got a car to drive. I got a house now. I got this. I got that. I can do what I want to do. Now, I'm not. If I continue doing it, I'm not doing it because you don't got on your feet. Why? What's stopping you from going to get a job? What's stopping you from going to further your education now? Now it's years down the line, and you got comfortable in doing wrong. You see what I'm saying?
And I'll say this with that. I think comfort, familiarity. I think when we get so kind of caught up in that, it does become hard to, think of other ways or to even consider other ways, because it is, even though the other way, we might see that, okay, that may be a better way to go about it. It's healthier, it's more helpful, it's more efficient. We get so scared about that because it's not familiar to us.
You're right.
Yeah.
We need to, we're gonna scratch the surface, and if it's okay with you, down the line we can bring an active client, a person dealing with something. Make sure we get their consent to record, and let them speak on some real life issues, man, that they're struggling with. Because a lot of people, man, I'm telling you, bro, they're dealing with things and they don't know what to do. They don't know who to confide into. They don't know where to get the help from. Because a lot of people really don't like talking to people about their business and what they're going through.
That's true.
So it's time to be here to help people get these issues out.
Yes.
Quit holding on to them.
Yes, definitely so.
So with that,
sounds good to me.
Viewers, you're going to see a lot more of us. If the Lord permits and allows this to continue to happen. I think this is very needed for those who are struggling. like I said, make sure you put your questions and your comments and your statements in the comment section. You know, and really tell us how you feel about what has been said. You know, we are waiting for any type of feedback that you have for us. And, you know, you got anything you want to say, Dave, before we
Yeah, well, I enjoyed being here, and I definitely got a lot more to talk about, and I look forward to doing that. And if anyone has any suggestions on what they really want to hear about more in depth, but put the suggestions there. You know, I'll be happy to talk about that.
Yeah, that was a good one. Any more suggestions? Like you said, put the suggestions in the comment section. And until next time, you all have a great night.
Peace.
In a minute.